Vážení posluchači a diváci, vítám vás u další epizody Shuffle Talku a máme tady dalšího úžasného zahraničního hosta a to je Avalon Rathgeb. Znovu vám připomínám, že tyto hovory jsou vedeny v angličtině, takže pokud nemluvíte anglicky, doporučím vám, abyste sledovali Shuffle Talk, tuto konkrétní epizodu na YouTube, kde ji najdete s českými titulky. A pokud angličtinu ovládáte a není vám cizí, tak samozřejmě můžete poslouchat dál na vašich podcastových aplikacích a můžete si užít tento rozhovor v tom původním jazyce. A nyní už přepínáme do angličtiny. I would like to welcome our amazing guest for this episode. It's Avalon Rathgeb from the United Kingdom. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. Sitting here slightly sweating. Just taught my advanced tap class, which was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, all good, all good. Having a lovely time, Brno.
This is great. This is great to hear. It was only a few days ago when we discovered that you've been in Brno, quite a few times, and this was your first time sort of seeing the city and experiencing some of the tourist traps and and tourist attractions. And we were very happy to have you here for this experience, not only for the classes, which were, of course, they were amazing, but also for everything that came with it. We just did the roundtable yesterday, and you gave us some amazing information, some amazing knowledge, and it's great to have someone like you and Ruben with so much experience from the dance world. And actually, most of my questions for today are concerning the dance world, your role in the dance world, and your experiences with it. And I think we can get on the way. The first question that I sort of ask everyone we've had for these interviews so far is around your beginnings. How did you start to tap dance? What was sort of like your gateway to it?
Yeah, sure. My mum was my dance teacher. So she had a dancing school, and we actually had a studio in our house, a small studio. So I started with her, and I studied with my mom until I was 18. I went to another school as well when I was 16 to 18, called Totnes School of Dance. And then I auditioned to go to dance school in London. So London has a lot of like professional schools, and they're kind of geared almost to go into like dance companies or to West End or to cruise ships or any kind of like dance job. So I went to dance school loving all subjects. My mum was more of a ballet dancer and I guess like cabaret and like showgirl kind of stuff. And I never had the physique for ballet. I've got like flat feet and like no turnout. And in my second year at college, I decided I really loved tap dance. And I had a teacher called Alison Forrester, and she came in for about 10 weeks into the school, and she completely changed my perspective of tap dance. She'd been in America for, I think, about 10 years, and she just came in, and it just like flipped the way that I thought about tap dance. So when I was at dance college, I went to Bird College. And it was more musical theatre. So it wasn't so rhythm orientated, and it was much more like upper body and hands and arms and facial expressions. And that wasn't really me. I never really felt comfortable, even though I loved tap dance. But I was like, there's something that just didn't quite feel right for me. And when she came in, she was like, I just want you to kind of dance. And like, she was like rhythmical, and she didn't make me do any like jazz hands and stuff like that. So she like fully changed my perspective. And I remember speaking to her after the first class. I was like, hey, like, why do you tap dance so differently? She was like, oh, I've been in America. And I was like, huh, okay. So that was like my first thought. And then she was wearing these like different shoes, like heavier shoes. And I was still in my like block things with the like rubber on the bottom. And I was oh, this is like a whole different thing. And then that year I saw Savion Glover at Sadler's Wells. And Sadler's Wells is a big like dance theatre, dance house in London. And I just got like a ticket by myself. So I went to the theatre by myself, and I was like, what is he doing? Like, this like doesn't make any sense, but makes all the sense at the same time. And I like raved about it for a whole year. I was like, this Savion Glover guy, like la 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 la, never seen anything like it before. And then for my birthday the next year, 2 different sets of friends, obviously I talked about tap dance for the entire year. had bought me tickets because he returned to Sadler's Wells again. So I went twice. I think he was performing like 3 or 4 nights, and I got to go 2 of the nights. And one of my friends was like, why don't we just go like side stage, like backstage, sorry, and like meet him and ask him like what's the deal? And I ended up speaking to Marshall Davis Jr. and Marshall was like, you should come to New York. And I was like, okay. So then that was in my 3rd year at college. So I think I saw him in like the beginning of the year. And by that point, I said to my director at school, I was like, I don't want to do the end of year show. And I want to go to New York. And I managed to get an internship with the American Tap Dance Foundation. And I interned there for Tap City for a week. Maybe it was probably over a week. I think the festival was probably a week, and I was there a little earlier and a little later. And like that just opened my eyes to something completely different. Like I had no idea who anyone was. Hillary Marie Michael, she was like, Harold Cromer. And I was like, who's Harold Cromer? Like I just didn't know who anyone was. And I was doing residency. So I put myself in the advanced residency because in the UK I was an advanced dancer and I was like so not an advanced residency student. And I was like, what is happening? Derek Grant was the teacher that I studied with for that like week. And it just blew my mind. I'd never seen a slide before. I hadn't seen all this stuff. And I was just remember trying to like practice because we had to perform this residency at the end of the week. And that's like when I met a bunch of people, Jason Samuels, Jared Grimes. I took his class at BDC, Michelle Dorrance, Brenda Buffalino. Chloe Arnold. I just met so many people. Tony Varg, who's the director of that program. So that was like my into tap dance, but very like limited in. So I was like, well, what do I do? Like, there's no one in the UK that I can really like learn from and like there wasn't that community around. And someone just mentioned to me Grant Swift in Australia. And I was like, Grant Swift? And the reason I didn't think about going to America is because, you know, the green card, the visa situation is difficult.
Yeah.
So I messaged Grant Swift, sent him an email. He didn't respond. And I was like, well, okay. So I just moved to Australia. So I moved to Australia and kind of turned up at Grant's studio and was like, hey, I'm here to tap dance with you. And he was like, okay. And Grant is the most caring and incredible human being. And he was just like, he gave me everything that he could possibly give me in the whole year. He would be like, film this, practice this. Like I'd come to the studio early, there'd be another studio. He'd be like, work on this step. He would send me out, let me work on the thing. He just involved me in as much as possible. And he was like a very, very incredible teacher. And then that's like when I went into his company, which is called TAP, and it was TEAYPE. It was spelled really weird. Tap. But like in a strange way. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Strange. Yeah, I think he's got it tattooed on his arm. And there, like, I met a bunch of great dancers, and like there was this like community that I met in Australia, and I like progressed and practiced a lot. And I got to dance with Thomas Waddleton, who's an incredible dancer. So I met him very early on in my career. So really, like Alison Forrester, my mum, obviously, for giving me my first upbringing in tap dance. Alison Forrester, that seeing Savion, going to Tap City and interning for the American Tap Dance Foundation, and Grant Swift were my like very early days of like tap dance. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Actually, I think Alison Forrester is one of the judges for IDO from United Kingdom.
Yeah. She's great. She's super, super knowledgeable, and I think that she's got a very well-rounded tap dance career. And she teaches in one of the colleges, Lane Theatre Arts in London, but she doesn't teach any open classes. And I actually think like a lot more people should know who she is, because I think she's a great source of information for us in the UK.
Yeah. All right. Actually, you've sort of answered part of this question, but still I would want to ask it. Who are your biggest teachers or mentors? Because I know that you've met quite a lot of tap dancers that somehow, or somewhat gave you a part of who they were as tap dancers, and so for most tap dancers, it's sort of like this mosaic of different experiences from different teachers. So who were your biggest mentors and inspirations?
Well, those people that I mentioned for sure. And then Michelle Dorrance was someone that like really took me under her wing. Like we got on as friends, and that was a really cool thing. So I think I met her in New York probably in 2009. I didn't really speak to her that much. But then come 2011, after I came back from Australia, I went back out to New York. And that's when I started to get pretty close to her. And then I went to LA. I was given a scholarship to go to the LA Tap Festival, and I met her again there, and we ended up just hanging out quite a lot. So like we became friends. So from that, I think from LA, and then the Prague Tap City Festival happened actually in 2012. And her, Chloe Arnold, Jason Samuel Smith were there. And I was asked to teach as well as like a young upcoming kind of dancer. So I got to hang out with her quite a lot over that summer. And then she became like a very close friend and a real like a guidance, I guess, in my dancing and a big inspiration. So for her, for sure. Acia Gray, I went into Tapestry, and Acia Gray, I learned a lot with her. So I spent 2 years in Tapestry Dance Company from 2017 to 2019. She was a huge influence on my dancing. There were only 6 people in the company, sometimes 8 with the apprentice dancers. So she got to spend a lot of time. And if you haven't done Acia's work before, you like kind of need to know what she's talking about, because she has a very specific structure of tap dance, like almost like a syllabus in the way that she teaches. Like she has all these kind of basic steps, and you really need to know her terminology and get into her brain. So I took classes as well with her. So in the evenings when I wasn't in company, I used to take classes. So I learned a lot from her and spent obviously 2 years like just dancing with her. So she was a huge influence on me. Josh Hilberman has always been someone that's around as well. He actually grew up in North Carolina, or was studying with Jean Medler, which is the same teacher as Michelle Dorrance. So those two are very close. So when I got to meet Josh, I was very close with Michelle. So that relationship was already like kind of there before I even knew who he was. And he was someone that was really looked at my dancing and was able to give me like a lot of constructive criticism as well. He'd be like, I don't like the way you do that. And I don't like the way you do this. Hey, but this is really good. And over the years, that relationship has developed a lot. And like, he put a piece of choreography on me. So he put like a solo on me. It's the first solo like that someone has choreographed for me. So we just filmed that like last year, I think it was. And he's directing a solo work of mine. He's already directed the first part of it. And I'm about to go into rehearsals in like 3 days, I guess, back with him again. So there's a lot to learn from him. Like he's a wealth of knowledge. So he's had a massive influence on me. And I've worked pretty closely with Sarah Savelli as well. She is a tap dancer based in Cleveland, Ohio. And she's also just been a really great support. And one of the people that was actually like, you need to do the London Tap Dance Festival. And I was like, huh. So she set a piece of work on the company on OKR Dance, and then I learned a bunch of her work as well that we just performed at the London Tap Dance Festival. So I think those people are like big influences in my life, and there's multiple people that I've taken classes with and learned so much from, but I think those folks are probably my main teachers, mentors, inspirations.
All right, it's a wonderful list, and I think if the listeners just look up each one of these people and and actually like try to learn something about them, it's like a well of information.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for that. Now, in the next part, I would like to ask you. You are a teacher. You've been a teacher for quite a long time. You said that in 2012 it was one of your first teaching experiences here in Czech Republic. So you've been teaching for 13 years now, or over 13 years, with the international festivals. And I would like to ask you what your experience with that is, and if you sort of. Well, definitely you've developed as a teacher, but in what way? What changed from the beginning when you were starting? What experiences sort of you learned along the way that, oh, I cannot do this way, I need to focus on this a little more? And what do you focus on as a teacher?
My teaching practice has developed a lot. Back in 2012, I guess I was a very different teacher because I was also still a student. And I think at that point when I started teaching internationally, I was always looking at the way that people conducted their classes and how they progressed their classes. I'd also come from such a teaching background because my mum was my teacher, right? So as a kid, my mum would be like, oh, Avalon, can you just teach this like 5 minutes thing? I just have to go and speak to this parent or something like that. So I was always like ready to kind of jump in. And in the dancing school, I started, at 2 years old, 3 years old with ballet. And I remember on a Saturday morning, the babies ballet was the first class, and then it like progressed. Like you got older, and you moved up a class, and there was like 5 or 6 ballet classes in a row. Well, I never left the babies ballet because I always had to assist my mum because I had to go to the studio with her. So I was always like in that kind of teaching mode. So I was always around good teaching. I think my mum is a brilliant teacher. So that gave me a lot of like build. I was never like nervous to teach, or I never felt a certain way about it. I was always like very happy to share what I could do. And then I guess in like my professional teaching, when I think about the things I used to teach in 2012, I'm like, strange. My technique has developed, my musicality has developed. I've developed as an artist. And when I grew up, everything was very straight rhythm. So like we didn't really swing much. And I remember like Michelle was like, you got to like work on swing, because like it was being over here in Europe where, our music is straight. It's very like almost like 2/4. And I didn't listen to jazz growing up. So I think as I developed as a dancer over the years with like more of a swing sensibility and listening to more jazz, I was able to implement that into my teaching practice as well. And then I've had like great teachers, like I've watched Asia teach for like those 2 years, and she wanted me to teach in a specific way as well, using her terminology and her teaching methods. So I think just a lot of influence has happened over the years, and it's kind of got me to where I want to be, but also stylistically and like what I want to say, I think that's developed individually for me. But I do often go into a room and I think, okay, what do the people need? Like, that's kind of what I always have like an idea of what I want to teach. Mm-hmm. But sometimes I'll do a follow me warm up and I'll be like, we probably need this, or we need to, I do a technical exercise and I think, okay, let's work on this little section. Or I know what the studio is. So like, I come here and I know I don't need to do any like trick steps, because you're like the best person to teach that. I'm not gonna go along and start teaching those things because it's not needed. What's needed is more like some of the musicality, being on the balls of the feet, some traditional steps, some time steps and things like that. So I like to think where I'm gonna be, and I think, okay, like what do I think the people are gonna need, in that sense. So yeah, I think that is also plays a big part of like, what do people need? Yeah. Like what are they going to benefit from? They don't necessarily need to be able to nail the thing in class. They just need to have an idea of, this is a different approach. And, I leave and then they can work on that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Absolutely. You've mentioned Asia Gray a couple of times, and she's the director of Tapestry, right? Yeah. Before we get into your personal experiences with Tapestry and Old Kent Road, could you please just tell us a little more on what a tap dance company is? Because that's something that I know that our listeners, and especially some of my students, it's sort of like a very new concept for them, because they saw, sort of a competition team is sort of like a dance company in a certain sense, in like the work arrangement. But what does a tap company focus on? Like, what's their work? How do they operate?
So I've been in like a couple of different companies, and Asia's company, which is in Texas, United States, it kind of closed. It stopped after, I think, about 35 years she ran that, and it stopped in the pandemic due to like lack of funding, and also Asia, at some point she needs to retire and like do what she wants to do. So I think it was a good time to kind of like stop the full-time company. But at the time when I was there, it was the longest running tap dance company worldwide, and we rehearsed from 9 till 2 every day. And we were paid to be there. So I'll talk about Asia's company first, because I think this is like such a pivotal place in tap dance. So we were 5 days a week, 9 till 2, and we would work for a season. So a season was from August to, I think, June. And we had 1, 2, 3, probably 4 main aspects of the season. And the first season would rehearse for about 6 weeks and would put on a show at the Long Centre. So she had residency at the Long Centre and would put on like a 2-week run of shows. So we'd have 6 weeks of rehearsal and then into a show. Then we'd have another probably about 6 weeks worth of rehearsal. And then we'd go into the Christmas show, which the Christmas show was always the same every year. And it was the Nutcracker, a jazz tap Nutcracker. So all the principal dancers used to play a role, and I used to play the Arabian doll. Oh yeah, and there was like, you know, there was the Chinese doll, the Spanish doll, there was the Rat King, I think. You know, there was a bunch of things, and it used to involve some of the like the youth academy and like the people that used to take classes. So that was that show. And then we would probably prepare another. We sometimes would go on tour, actually, and so work round the USA to different theatres. And that could be another show again. So like 6 weeks of rehearsal into another show. And then we would do an education part, and that would probably be about 2 weeks where we'd go into local schools and like talk about tap dance and do like lecture demonstrations. So that would be to like younger children or like high school children. And that would be like a short show of like, you know, this is what we do and this is what tap dance is. And it's an American tradition and American culture. And I should say African-American art form. And then we would go into the next part of the season, which would be gearing up for Soul to Soul Festival, which is a festival that happens in Austin, Texas. And we would do 2 shows. There'd be 2 nights of shows, the Friday and the Saturday. And the Friday would be the company would perform work. And then the Saturday would generally be the international artist, or, you know, the artist. Not, I would say not international, because most of them are from the United States. So we'd work to that show. So that was like our whole year. And it seems like really jam-packed, and it is. And some of those shows we did Sound and Silence was one of them, and that was all new work from Asia, and like our solos were our own and like moments of improvisation. But these are like full-blown like 2-hour shows, you know, so a lot of work. And then some of them were like rep shows, so shows that she's done before. April Fools, The Soles of Our Feet, I did those as a second company. So people like Matt Shields and Travis Knights, Tanya, they'd done those shows beforehand. So ACA may have choreographed those like 8 years previous, and then we just had to like, you know, copy someone's work in a sense, or that was the character and that was you're now that person. So she had a lot of rep shows because the company was going for, you know, a really long time. So a lot of it was like repetition shows just with different people. So that I would say is like the biggest accomplishment in company life. And, you know, you're paid to do that as well. You get a monthly paycheck and it's amazing. You're getting paid to do what you love, like rehearse and then show. So that was incredible. The company that I founded, which is OKR Dance, which was Old Kent Road, and we like kind of changed the name after 10 years. We would love to have that, but it's all about funding. So going back to ACL, she works her ass off and she gets a ton of funding, a ton. She gets funding to be able to support and pay 6 tap dancers per season, which is obviously a lot of money in the arts. So we've had funding. We've had quite a lot of funding, but we do more project-based work. So we rehearse every Friday for 4 or 5 hours. And if we are creating a new show that we're going to tour, then we'll do it like more intensive rehearsals. So we might rehearse for like 4 or 5 weeks at a time before we take a show on tour. So that could be pre-pandemic. It was amazing because we got funding and things were a lot easier. And then post-pandemic, things have been like way more difficult. But we would rehearse and then we would take a show on tour. And the tour could be like a couple of weeks, or we would do like a couple of gigs somewhere and come back to the UK, or, you know, come back to London or whatever. And then like would have like different shows, but we weren't full-time. We were never full-time. Love to be full-time, but obviously there's a lot of money for the government to give us. Yeah. So that was that company. And then when I was in Australia, it was similar to what I do with my company in London. We were more, we'd have rehearsals in the evening or something like that and then perform the work. So yeah, that's company life, I'd say. And I love that because, you end up being like with the same people and it's like family. It's incredible. Like, your people, you've been dancing with the same people. And, me, Ryan and Ali, for example, we've been dancing now 11 years together. So we have each other's backs on stage. I know in the rehearsal room who's the strongest at doing, whatnot. And I love that we're like, it's not, I wouldn't say it's like my company. Yes, I do all the admin work and all of that kind of thought and the thought process, but I'm always very open to, people that have stronger skills than me. Like Ali Croswell's a genius of working with musicians, like, because he reads music, he creates music. So when we're working with musicians, he leads the room. I don't have anything to do with it. Ryan also is like one of those people that is very good at communicating with the musicians. He also always does all the sound setup for the company. He does a lot of choreography. So yeah, everyone, I really utilize like their skills, I would say. Yeah, and what I would say with tap dance, it's people don't know about companies because there's not many companies around. Dorrance Dance is like our biggest. Michelle Dorrance's company is probably like the biggest thing that's happened in the last 15 years, I would say. But tap dance compared to other forms of dance, we're very lacking in that sense. Like contemporary companies, there's so many contemporary companies that have been going on, like the ballet companies, Royal Ballet Company, Rambert Dance Company. All the other forms have these full-time companies and multiple full-time companies that are funded, and we don't have that in tap dance. So we're like severely behind, and that's like one of the things that I'm always, whenever I'm writing applications, I'm like, we don't have any full-time tap dance companies. It's insane. Like we have all these full-time ballet companies and contemporary companies and even hip-hop companies, but the funding that's not given to tap dance. So that's probably why a lot of young tap dancers don't know about what a company is, because if you're a ballet dancer, you train your whole life, and there are all these different companies, and that's what you do. You'd go into a company as a ballet dancer, and that's how it works.
Yeah.
But we don't have that opportunity in tap dance.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think the tap dance companies are sort of like one of the last things you get to explore when you're a tap dancer, because you start with like the biggest events, like a lot of people see like tap dance in movies.
Yeah.
Usually some of the old ones, like, I don't know, you start with Singing in the Rain or something, because that's something that is very easy to start with when you're a beginner tap dancer.
Yeah.
Then you start learning about the very famous tap dancers that are contemporary. Then you start getting to the older ones, and only after you sort of like gone through all of that, you are sort of able to like start finding out where the companies are.
Yeah.
Because Dorrance Dance is one of those things where a lot of people hear about it because they know of Michelle Dorrance.
Yeah.
I've heard of Tapestry because of you. I think it was Danny Borak who was telling me that you are in Tapestry in Texas. So that's how I found about it. And of course, I think some companies are more known. I know that I found about OKR from Instagram and just watching some of that work over there. But yeah, definitely it would be great if there was a more well-known topic.
Yeah, and also the funny thing is with tap dancers we don't have the institutions. So ballet, they have the institutions. If I talk about the Royal Ballet School, they have White Lodge, and I think you can start there from when you're about 11 to 16. And then it goes to the Upper Royal Ballet School from 16 to 18, and then there's the company. Whereas we don't have that. Like, so those young dancers, they already start to get implemented through the system.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of dancers do. Whereas tap dancers, we're like, hey, let's create some work. Let's get in a studio. Because we don't have the foundation. Like, the whole foundation is missing. So that's also like part of the reason why we don't have that structure in our dance form.
But maybe I think as a sort of a counterpoint, I completely agree with you. But at the same time, I think maybe it can be beneficial in the sense that sometimes when you have like institution that sort of like pre-plans everything, it can get a little stale.
Yeah, for
Whereas
sure.
whereas some tap dancers, when they just come in with original ideas that have not been tried before, because some of them might not work, it actually can, lead to something great. I think a good example would be with music, would be how a lot of people started experiencing and experimenting with music in the 60s without any supervision almost, or
Yeah.
just like supervision on sound
Yeah.
and like mixing it all together. But, they just started messing around and it worked. Yeah.
And you're totally right, because actually, if you're thinking about going into a band, your aim is not to go into this specific band. The thing is that you grab the people that you like being around, right? And then you create the band, or you create that's how bands develop, right? Whereas I guess in that sense, like, we're similar as tap dancers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I would like to move on to London Tap Festival.
Yeah.
If you could tell us a little about that, it would be wonderful.
Yeah. I kind of like wasn't really planning to do like a tap festival at the beginning, because when I first started, it was our 10-year anniversary last year. So we started in 2014 as OKR Dance. And so we were going to celebrate that 10 years. So we were going to do a show in London and, invite as many people as possible to come and see the show. And then we were like, well, actually, if we're doing a show, we should do some like workshops to go along it, right? And make like a little weekend of it. And then I was like, oh, sorry. Then I was like, well, are we like creating a tap festival? Sorry.
No, that's fine. We can edit
Sorry,
that out.
young people.
It is okay. Sometimes kids, sometimes adults, they say a bad word, but at the end of the day, in the end, they regret it very much.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm so
there's a
sorry.
swear jar outside of the
Yes,
studio.
I will rinse my mouth out with soap. My parents never swear, by the way, and I'm like have a horrible voice and a horrible mouth, and I always swear. Anyway, going back to that, don't swear, young people. London Tap Dance Festival. So yeah, there was this thing. I was like, hey, are we creating a tap festival? And I was like, oh God. And Sarah Savelli was like one of those people that's like, you should do the London Tap Dance Festival. And I was like, And because there's not like a huge community in London, and there's not like many people that are older, it was kind of on me to do it in a way. So we ended up creating this festival, and actually it went down really well, like the first year. And I created it with a girl called Alex, who was amazing, and she's like totally opposite from me. Like, she's very like task orientated and can complete all these things on time. And she's like, got things on the computer that I don't know what they are, all these Excel things and budgets. And I'm like, trying to create the show. So actually we worked really well together. And she hugely helped me get that off the ground. So when we did the first one, she was like, hey, it went well. And I was like, it did. And I was like, are we doing another one? And then I was like, I think we need to do another one. And all this like came in like from different people's responses. Oh my God, it's so good. Thank you so much. So then I got myself stuck for the second year, and we did it again. And actually the second year you learn from your mistakes, and, again, it went really well. And Alex got super busy with work and like personal things. So I roped in two other people, Phoebe and Emma, and now like producing this tap festival with these guys. But the reason why I wanted to do it, which I said at the beginning, was part of the company. So I wanted to get the company to perform in London, because when we were on tour, we would never perform in London, like hardly ever. We'd always be somewhere all over the UK, in Edinburgh, and I don't know, we went to China twice on tour. We're never touring in London. We're not in the city, which was so weird to me. So I was like, okay, let's like do something in London. So yeah, that was kind of the main idea, was the gala. So actually, when I invite people to the festival, I think, okay, let me think about the gala. So, because, the tap festival is just a bunch of tap dancers in the audience, but actually it's really nice to see work develop. So not only solo, and nothing against anyone that does that in a show, but how cool would it be to like collaborate with like different artists, like. And I wanted to give my dancers as well the opportunity to work with other dancers. So this year, we brought over Sarah Savelli, Carissa, and Magali, and they all set work. So we learnt that work, and we performed the first act of the show with all that new work. So, you know, for some of the dancers, the OKR dancers, it was the first time they'd met these artists. They'd been dancing their choreography for the last however many months because we've been practicing it. So that was like part of it. And then it also gives us a little aim of something to work on for that show. So that's essentially what it is. And I think it's really, really important. It's a lot of money to run the thing. And luckily this year we got a bit of funding from the Arts Council of England, and it's the first time in 5 years. And we also got some funding from Jane Goldberg, who's a tap dancer from New York. So we were really lucky in that sense. But to keep it going, we need funding. So let's see where we get to and what we can get up to and see what we can raise in the meantime. If anyone wants to give us funding.
we'll put it in the
yeah.
There will be the preview for the
yeah.
There will be the preview for this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I have actually, I think, the last two questions that are sort of more concerning you personally. This one's a little difficult, and you can sort of like choose the angle where you want to answer from. But what do you think makes you original as a tap dancer? What sets you apart from other tap dancers? Or maybe there is a like your style that sort of you are gravitating towards.
Gosh, what makes you individual? I don't know. I guess away from tap dance, it's like the life experiences that you've had. I think, you know, the things that you've been through as a person shape who you are, right? And I hope that people think I'm a kind person. I hope that, because I think I've experienced a lot of very kind people in my life. Like I have very like incredible parents, and I have like incredible friends. I always think I'm like super lucky that I have all these like superhumans around me, and I hope that like comes out in like the way that I am with other people and my teaching and the way that I am like on stage as well. I hope I'm like a giving person. But also, you know, everyone's gone through like crap in their lives, right? So like, you know, that was also there. So there's like, you know, these people that have had influence on me that are super kind and generous and caring and great teachers. And then there's also these like life hacks that have happened, and you like, I think you take all of that and it makes you who you are as a person. And once you start being made up of all these different molecules or whatever it is, I think that is who you are as a performer, as an artist. And just different influences, you know, life influences, but also like music influences. And, you know, I was saying to you the other day, I'm a huge fan of dance. Like I love watching dance, any form of dance. So I think I take a lot of inspiration from other dance forms as well. And yeah, I think I am where I am right now, but God knows where I'll be in 5 years or 10 years, like as an artist, as a person, as what I want to put out there. I just made this like solo work actually, and it was a very strange solo work. It was kind of like deep. I'd say it was deep for me, and it was about a very specific time in my life where I got back from America and I'd spent 2 years over there, and I'd left everything in the UK, including my company, and they were still touring without me. So someone was like subbing me, and they were still doing all this stuff, and I was like in Texas and like coming back and forth. And then when I came back, and I was like, whoa, like I'm back, like I don't know what to do with myself right now. I had like no teaching work and like hadn't seen a bunch of people for so long, and like I changed as a person so much. I ended up like being like, I think I need to like go away for a while and like figure out who I am. And it was the first time in my life I was like, am I like having a midlife crisis? So like I ended up going to India and like backpacking in India by myself. It was like so strange. Like I was doing all this, like, I know I was like really on like this, like, I don't know, self-help path, but maybe like as an ego thing. I don't know. Spent a lot of time with myself, and I met a lot of great people and did a lot of yoga and like, you know, listened to a lot of good music and was kind of just present in this country that I love, India as a country. And then like got back, and I was like kind of like, oh yeah, I'm like starting to understand who I am and what's important to me. And then the pandemic hit. So I was already like taken out of my normal surroundings. And then the pandemic hit, and like, whoa, like what was the pandemic? Like, you know what I mean? Like then you literally have nothing. I didn't have any like studio or anything like that. I was not teaching anywhere or doing anything. I'd been like on tour with the company. So it's this very strange like moment that I was like, oh, I wanted to like figure out who I was and spend time away in India by myself. And then I like get to this place that actually I'm like forced to sit by myself. Like I'm not traveling like kind of looking at these great temples in India. I'm like forced to sit in this apartment and like no contact with people. And it was the strangest thing. And like, so I made this solo work about this specific time in my life. Like this kind of like, let me figure out who I am in like this, you know, hippy dippy way, I guess.
Yeah.
Like that involved money and like, you know, like having to go to India and like that. And it was kind of like almost a luxury in a way to be able to take myself away and then to be like, oh, the luxury is gone. And now you're like really forced to figure out who you are. So I made this work and it's kind of deep in some ways. Yeah. So that's where I am in like my solo artistic expression is like trying to like go back to that place and be like, I spent so much time knowing myself in lockdown or like learning myself in lockdown. Do I apply that to my everyday life now? Like, or am I just like back on the thing and like running around, you know? Do I still implement those things? So that's kind of where I am in the sense of my artistic space. I don't know where I'll be in 5 years. Hopefully not in the same place, not always thinking about lockdown. But, you know, I think it was a good time and it was making a solo work is a good outlet of putting that and like not forgetting those times in my life. So yeah, I don't know if that's answered the question. But
Well, it answered many questions, and
Right.
and as I said, choose an angle where that question makes sense for you,
yeah,
and I think you did. My very last question
yeah.
is concerning if you have a dream project. Now, don't think about the budget, don't think about, you know, all the technical stuff around it, but if you had a free reign, if you had like a magic wand that could just make anything happen, what would happen? What would be up on that stage?
Oh my gosh, like kind of your idea. I would love to have like a space and a theatre. Like I'd love to have that and be able to have a full-time company so I could pay people.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to have like a youth program that like filters into a professional company.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to be able to make new work, tour new work. Yeah, so like having a space and like a theatre space, but be able to have like Tapestry, a full-time company where I'd never have to write an application ever again in my life. It would just be funded for life. How incredible would that be? And then like be able to get people, you know, people that inspire me and people that I love, be like, hey, you and you should come and like work in this space and like put you together and like, why don't you like work on something, like create something? I'd love to be able to give opportunity to like a bunch of people and just have tapas present on stage as other forms of dance.
Yeah.
I think that would be super important because you go to shows now, especially in like dance theatres, and you barely see tap dance, barely. Like in London at Sadler's Wells, Michelle Dorrance comes once every 2 years, maybe once every 3 years. And apart from that, it's pretty much every other dance form. So you get a tap show every 2 or 3 years. And that to me is insane. So, you know, if tap dance could break into that and be seen by more audiences and by like, it doesn't need to be just my company. Like it would be great that other people are making work and we could produce that and put it into bigger spaces. I think that would be the dream.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's a wonderful dream, and maybe it will happen one day because, well, I think just with the idea of how many young tap dancers are just appearing and how many are joining the community right now, because I think a lot of younger teachers and tap dancers, they are making a lot of effort to sort of like enlarge this community and sort of like bring a lot of the competition tap dancers to the non-competition side. They are bringing them there a lot earlier. It used to be 10 years ago, it used to be once you were 16, 17, you were sort of like, you've experienced enough of the competitions, you would go on your own. But I think a lot of people are starting to reach out a lot more, even with the younger kids, like, 8, 9.
Yeah.
So they have this opportunity to sort of like experience this and learn this a lot earlier. So maybe, with more tap dancers, there will be more opportunities. There will be bigger audiences. And I think very, very slowly, but I think things are moving in the right direction.
I absolutely agree with you. And I think actually, like, when I look at young tap dancers now compared to 10 years ago, like you said, like the ability and the skill level is continuously growing. And I think that's having access to like multiple teachers, because like it's easier to travel now than it was so many years ago. And now we've got this thing called social media, and everyone can just look at the thing and they're like, oh, Jared Grimes, let's see what he's up to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like people are like upping themselves so much. Whereas when I first went to America, there was no social media, and like there are some things on YouTube, but people were like, it's so different. So actually I think that people are more curious and more like willing. They're like, oh, I can do this. Like, so I think that's really exciting.
Yeah. All right. It was an absolute pleasure to have you here, not only as a guest on this episode of Shuffle Talk, but also as a teacher. It really was super nice to talk to you, to learn from you. Thank you so much for all the experience and all the knowledge. And I'm pretty sure that our viewers and listeners enjoyed this as well. And we'll be super happy to have you here again. And hopefully, anytime soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm excited. Thank you.
Thank you, and I hope that you enjoyed this episode, and we'll be happy to see you next time on another episode of Shuffle Talk. Goodbye.